welcome to another edition of What Do You Believe? I'm Devin Croner, pastor and real estate agent in the Northern Kentucky area. And I am so glad to have you joining me as we embark on another journey tonight, talking with someone about something that they are passionate about. You know, what I find is that human beings are incredibly diverse. People of faith, people of no faith, people who believe in medicine, people who believe in divine intervention, people who believe in aliens, people who believe we're the only ones in existence, people who believe in one man, one woman marriage, people who believe in same-sex marriage, people who believe in plural marriages, people who believe that you don't even need to be married. Our race, our species, has such incredible diversity of thought and perspective. And in the day and age that we live in, what happens often is we end up divided over things that we don't fully understand. We're told, believe this, don't believe that. And so often we do. But when we actually come together and we begin to listen to one another and we begin to talk about things, sometimes having perspective can help us to understand people more fully. That's the goal of this simple series, is not to argue, not to tell people what to do or what not to do, even though I'm a pastor. I believe the Bible. I believe Jesus is the only way to heaven. But I also understand that there are people who are just as passionate as I am that believe in other gods, believe in no God whatsoever. And what I came to begin to realize is that I didn't always understand, even though I believe they're wrong, sincerely. How could they be so passionate about something that I believe to be so wrong? But when you start talking to them, sometimes you find out that they think the same thing about me. How could I be so passionate? How could he be so ignorant over something that he doesn't even know? How could you believe in a God that you cannot see, a God that you cannot hear, a God that you cannot touch? These are valid questions and things that I think help us, again, be able to communicate on a much more rich and deep level as we talk about them. But not everything is deep and religious. Some of it's just fun. In this series, we talk to people about growing your own food. We talk to people about relationships. We talk to people about politics. And tonight, I'm excited to be able to talk to a good friend of mine, an old friend. Not that old, but Jordan Bunce. Jordan, first of all, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing well. Just trying to keep sane during all this. So, how about yourself?
Doing excellent, staying busy. So again, what we're doing is we're just discussing the whole theme of this is, what do you believe? What are you passionate about? What do you believe? And just to share perspective with people about things that maybe they never have thought about, never considered, why something's important, why people do things that they do. And you and I have a history going back now several years.
Yeah.
And I know that you have some unique talents and some unique passions, and I asked you to come and share a little bit about that and why it's something that you're so passionate about. But first of all, take a moment, introduce yourself, tell us who you are.
All right. My name is Jordan Bunce. I currently live in Kansas City. I am an entertainer and performer. That is my job. Most of the times, if you were to see me outperforming, you wouldn't even know it's me, because I normally have something covering my face, whether that would be makeup or a mascot costume, or I guess in that case, if I'm talking about my face, it would be a mascot head. But yeah, so I am a professional idiot is the way I like to put
it. Now, I remember one of my very first experiences with you in this vein was with juggling.
Yeah.
And kind of clowning, essentially.
Yeah.
Only, as I remember it, I'm the one who was dressed like the clown.
You know, that might have happened. As I recall, I think some of my fondest memories were when you were Major Payne, and I don't remember my character's name, but I just remember the kids absolutely going crazy
Yeah.
over
Yeah,
that.
and I was making you do push-ups and sit-ups and all those different things, jumping jacks. Yeah, it's fun. But the thing is that a lot of people, like, we were doing children's ministry, so that people who are watching have context. We were doing children's ministry, and so they were characters, and we were interweaving that with the Bible stories and the themes that we were telling. People understand it in that context. They understand it in that vein. Okay, you're having fun, but you're teaching kids.
Hmm.
But when you bring that into adult life, uh, a lot of people are going to think about this as, well, that's weird. I mean, that's not a real job. Talk about that and kind of the experience that you've had in interacting with people when they find out what you do.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a former Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus clown. I gotta rep the shirt. That's where I got my start. Actually, Pastor Devin Croner allowed me to perform in children's ministry right before I left to join the circus. So I just want to mention that, make sure I got that out there. And I actually just watched the video that my friend took during that, and it made me smile and just think of some of the old memories. But currently, my job title is I am the mascot assistant for the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl LIV champions. Um, and yeah, it's a very interesting job. Um, I've been able to be a part of some really really cool moments just by sweating and wearing a costume. And you
So
know,
what does the mascot assistant do? Like, if you have a personal assistant as a business CEO, they plan meetings and carry your folder and fetch your water. Is that what you do? I mean, what is it?
um, to an extent, um, I on game day, I work game day at Arrowhead Stadium for Chiefs home games, and I follow Casey Wolf, who is our mascot, around the stadium wherever he may end up going and needing to go. And then I have last year I worked very closely with Casey Wolf and followed him around and did 298 appearances throughout Kansas City and actually all over the United States. So yeah.
Wow. And so when you do an appearance, I mean, kind of mascots in and of themselves, when you're talking about major professional teams, are kind of celebrities. Like, I remember growing up a Chicago Bulls fan, Benny the Bull.
Benny, I worked with him last year out in Orlando, Florida, and man, that guy
There's a
is.
whole personality, and it's not just kids. It's not just kids. So what do you do? Like, what goes into planning an event or a Sunday game day, and then what is it you're actually out there doing?
Um, so, well, for events, because they do take up the majority of my time, and because we only have such a small season compared to like baseball, where they have crazy amounts of home games throughout the entire summer. Uh, I events are really something that I do a lot more of,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a year long job. It really doesn't stop, except for right now. This is the longest I've been not being in a costume. My last appearance was March 12th, so I've definitely put on some of that COVID weight. Uh, but there's a lot that goes into preparing for an appearance because appearances are all over. I mean, you go from doing like a store grand opening to a birthday party at someone's house to a massive concert. I mean, you never know where you're going to end up,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot that goes into it. And knowing your audience too is a huge thing. What you may see me do on the field at Arrowhead Stadium is probably not the same thing I'm going to do whenever I walk into a children's hospital, because you have to adjust. You stay true to the character itself,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got to adjust to your crowd and to your audience and still give them the best show you can possibly give. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's, I'm on stage being a goofball, juggling, or getting in a fight with a folding chair.
Mm-hmm.
And the uh, sometimes the most meaningful thing is just being there for someone to hug.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing it was a lady's birthday. I think it was her 98th birthday. It was at a nursing home, and her caregivers actually contacted the Chiefs to ask if the wolf would come out. And I remember this lady was a huge Chiefs fan, and I was kind of like, man, a 98-year-old's birthday. What am I going to do? I was still somewhat new at this. This was several years ago, and just walking in there and noticing none of her family wanted to show up that day. They just kind of like mailed her a card, and it was really it breaks your heart a little bit, honestly. But being there and seeing the smile I was able to put on her face through the gifts that I've been given,
Mm-hmm.
I think people underestimate the power of an entertainer and a mascot. How important it is, especially in these trying times. We all need to laugh. We all need something to, uh, just really. Sorry, I'm trying to find the word, and it's not what I find, but
Give us an
critical.
escape.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was telling someone the other day, they're like, well, kids are getting smart and they know that it's just a guy in a costume. And I said, well, that's fine. And I understand where you're coming from. And I, as a child, knew it was just a guy in a costume. I knew whenever I saw my boss when I was 4 years old, so it was 24 years ago, I saw him performing. And that's when I knew I wanted to do what he was doing. And I still had fun, I still laughed, and I think anyone still laughs. I mean, if someone's funny, it doesn't matter what they're wearing, they're funny.
Right.
So just because I'm in a costume and it's a guy in a costume doesn't mean you're not going to laugh. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's kind of like you go to a magic show. I mean, David Copperfield, for instance. I mean, he's amazing and does these incredible, elaborate tricks. But yet, there's still a part of you that knows that there's a gimmick to it. Like, he didn't really make somebody vanish, right?
Right.
At least you hope not, because that's a whole different thing. Uh, but there's still the sense of awe and wonder to it. And that's kind of what you get to do in some of these settings, is bring the comic relief, or bring the joy, or bring the kid out in what could otherwise just be a ho-hum kind of situation, right?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I've got a good story for you. Um, I'll lead into it with this. If you're wondering, um, because a lot of people ask me this at almost every appearance I do, someone asks, "Is it hot in there?" Yes, it's very hot in there. It's 45 degrees hotter than the temperature you're going into, and then my costume weighs anywhere from about 35 pounds before I start sweating, and after I start, if it's a hour 2 hour appearance, my costume can weigh quite a bit more, because it's essentially kind of a sponge. So all that sweat soaks up and makes you smell real good. But I was doing an appearance at it was a local hospital, and I remember I was just sweating bullets. It was so hot in there, and we went into this one room, and there is a man who's an elderly man, and his wife is on the hospital bed. You can tell she doesn't seem to have much time left.
Mm.
And when I walked in there, I was like, what am I supposed to do? I'm some stupid looking guy, this funny looking costume with 85-inch hips and googly eyes, and I just walked in on this situation. and I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of the most powerful moments because I remember her husband started telling us what was going on and said the doctors have given her through tomorrow, but they don't think she'll make it much farther than that. And was just telling us all these things. And I remember as I was sweating and sweating and sweating, tears started coming out of my eyes because I just couldn't. It was heartbreaking. You know, this man loved his wife, and they'd been married for so long. And at the end of his story, he got up, and I hugged him, and then I realized he wasn't letting go because he was crying on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was just me, I don't think that situation would have given that.
Mm-hmm.
It took that silly character to walk into there, and I just started bawling. And there was this one moment that happened that still to this day cracks me up. I know that sounds terrible, but hear me out. As he finished hugging me and wiping the tears off on my jersey, his wife looks up and goes, "Goodness, he's got a big butt." And we all, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I totally broke character because I started laughing. But you never know what you're walking into from one moment to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
a lot of people, I think, just imagine that mascots are there for kids or children, but we can all find a reason to laugh. Laughter is some of the best medicine.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is a nurse and has been a nurse longer than I've been alive, and she does so much to help people. And I always knew I am not that person.
Mm-hmm.
I know I work in haunted houses. I do a lot of special effects makeup also. I'm good with fake blood, but the second it comes to real blood, no way, no way. But I just seeing how much she's able to help people, and I always wondered, like, where is my outlet? How can I give back and help other people?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized sometimes the best thing you can do is just make someone laugh. Sometimes all you can do is give a hug. Another story that uh, is one of my all-time favorite stories. One of my favorite moments to have been me. It was before I started working for the Chiefs. I was working for a tiny little water park in not a very good area, but I wanted to be a mascot, and they had an opening, and it didn't pay much at all, but I knew it was an excuse to get to put on a costume and get paid to do what I love and to better my craft.
Mm-hmm.
And this one day in particular, I was pretty just down. I was just like, man, no one knows who this character is, and I want to be a pro. I want to work for a professional NFL or an NHL or an MLB team. But I'm still just kind of at this crummy water park. And to top that all off, we were going to Children's Mercy Hospital, which is a children's hospital here in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to do room visits, and they ended up telling us, we're actually not going to allow that. And we're going to have you stay in the lobby, but in this other side of the lobby that's not our main entrance, so that you aren't going to bombard people. And we're kind of like, man, this is what we're here for, to make people happy. And man, I just remember I was so stubborn. I was just like, man, why am I even doing this? Why, it's not worth $10 an hour to be here. And I just remember I had the worst attitude that day. And then something happened that completely changed my life. I saw a little girl come running towards me with the biggest smile on her face. And, I was like, finally, something here, I get to, I'll see someone who's really excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
and she hugged me, and I still didn't think a whole lot of it. And we had these little toy balls we were giving out with the name of the water park on them. And she and I started rolling the ball back and forth to each other. And, 5-10 minutes passed. And then she got up and went and started talking to the representatives from the water park that were there that day. And I see this man who's just bawling his eyes out come up to me. And he goes, "That's my daughter. We've been in the hospital for 11 days. She had open heart surgery. She hasn't spoke. She hasn't laughed. The only time she said anything this entire time is if the doctors really needed her to. And you have no clue what you just did. You have no clue the impact you just made." And I remember just thinking about how I had just been in such a terrible mood, and this isn't worth it. Why am I here? And it just goes to show that God has ways of using people and using you in a position you may not understand why you're there. You may not want to be there, but there's a purpose for all of the things that have happened to me in my life. It's a journey. It's been a journey.
That's amazing. It reminds me, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams, but the old lady in the movie that ends up in the bath of noodles.
Yeah.
And just, he was always doing his weird stuff and all that, but just the idea that you would go to that length to bring joy to somebody that nobody else really was, for lack of a better term, ministering to or going after. And that's kind of what you get to do with this, is there's not necessarily a specific target. You're just there to try and help people experience something that they wouldn't otherwise experience, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that like for you? I mean, you just told the story about having the bad day and then that little girl, but I mean, like, what is your mindset when you are going to work normally, to prepare yourself to do some of the, because I've seen you, and not even in the professional setting, but just, when you were getting there, some of the things you did to your body, the flips, the falls, things like that. I couldn't do that. I'd be like, no, that's going to hurt. How do you prepare yourself for that?
It does hurt. Being a mascot, it helps a little bit because you got a little bit of padding now, but it's, that all started at a young age. I've got an older brother, a younger sister, and then 2 younger brothers. And all the boys, when we'd go over to Grandpa's house, we would always turn on old Three Stooges tapes. And of course, we're young boys, and of course we're going to do all those things to each other. If they do it in the show, why can't we do it to ourselves? Then we grew up a little, and then it became WWE wrestling, and we, obviously it says before the show starts, do not attempt any of these things. We were just like, fast forward through that because we're going to try all of it, We're going to do flips off the back of the couch, and you kind of learn how to take the fall the best you can when you grow up with that many brothers. And so that's kind of how that started. It is still definitely hard on your body, but there are ways to get into that it's a little bit easier. In fact, I was the other day out of boredom, I started thinking about when I was with the circus, and I went through the show in my mind, and I thought about all the different falls I took during each show, and I was like, man, I wonder through the entire time how many falls I did and how many of these things I did. And clearly I did a lot of them because my chiropractor is not going to be going out of business anytime soon.
Yeah, I look for ways to avoid falling, and you look for ways to do it and make people laugh. But sticking in that vein, I mean, you're in the circus. That's obviously it's a performance, but you have to practice these things, right? I mean, you're not just
Well,
going
yeah,
in there, because otherwise, it's like you mentioned WWE. If they don't practice those things, people can get really hurt if you don't practice some of the things that you do. So, I mean, what does that look like? I mean, is that what you're doing the rest of the week? Is just kind of going through the routine?
I need to stop you there. Are you saying WWE isn't real?
I mean, you know, I got bad news. You know what? Santa Claus. So, sorry, we're just bringing it all out, all of it, right here in
Great.
there.
Now, what are you going to tell me next? Chuck E. Cheese isn't real?
Oh,
World
you know
Cup
what? I
2.
haven't been in one of those in years, so I couldn't tell you what's going on there. But I mean, what is that like? Like, how do you design for? I guess I don't know your terminology, but how do you design a show, a routine, a program? I mean, whether you're going to a birthday party or whether you're doing a Chiefs game or whether you're doing a circus. I mean, there's a pattern to it, right?
Yeah. So today and for the past several years, the best thing for me is finding ways to use everyday objects you're going to find in everywhere. Um, uh, for for instance, I can play around with a broom for 15 minutes in a mascot costume and have people dying laughing, and it's just a broom. You look for everyday excuses, everyday props that you're
Mhm.
just going to have somewhere. Um, and I mean, going from being a clown to being a mascot, they are similar. They're actually very similar. The difference is when you're a clown, the majority of the time you're doing a skit, you're doing a show.
Mhm.
Um, and when you're a mascot, well, one, you're not talking now, and two, it's not really a show. You are um, performing nonstop. Whether you're taking pictures, whether you're doing this, you got to find ways to entertain people. Um, I mean, I'm trying to think. It's amazing what you can get away with being a mascot. Also, I mean, I I'm pretty sure if I were to do the things I do, like I performed in a mall, I've performed in several malls, and I'll always like jump on the escalator and throw my legs over the top and slide down it. I'm like, if anyone else were to do this, like security would be here, they'd be arrested or something, and I'm just here, I'm like,
Right.
woo,
Right.
jumping over the food courts and
But again,
you know,
how do you practice sliding down the rails of an escalator?
uh, you find an escalator and you are at an appearance that is kind of slow, but you're going to be there for several hours and go, oh, this looks like fun, and you just try it.
Or
And
the story on the news about some guy who jumped and slid down the escalator and was escorted out, that was you.
I plead the fifth.
So in working with the Chiefs, do you get to practice these things at Arrowhead? I mean, obviously that's a
At
if you
times, yeah, there are definitely times where I get to practice those things, and we're fortunate that our offices are not necessarily in a stadium, but they're in the stadium. So, if, for those who don't know, Arrowhead Stadium, which is where the Kansas City Chiefs play, and Kauffman Stadium, which is where the Kansas City Royals play, they share a parking lot. The stadiums are right next to each other. Along in that parking lot, there's a building right by it that is our office and our practice field. So it's nice to be able to be there because you're like, hey, we've got this idea. Let's go find the costume piece. Let's try this. Let's see how this works. And
Mhm.
having field access and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
getting into the stands and just saying what could I do in this situation,
Mhm.
and
Have
whatnot.
you ever had them tell you no to anything that you wanted to try and do?
Oh yeah. I wanted to rappel down when I was a hockey mask. I wanted to rappel down from the ceiling, and that one got turned down. I don't know why. That always gets turned down.
Probably the liability if something slips and you fall.
You know, there's a phrase that I've heard used in the mascot world, and it's a lot of mascots don't ask permission; they ask for forgiveness. And I mean,
That was my theme as a children's pastor too. Usually that's how it works. Now let's back up a little bit. You said that you knew very early on this was kind of how you wanted to go with your life, but I've got to ask, how does one become part of the circus? How does one become a mascot? How do you? I mean, is there a class? Is there a book you read?
so there are classes. A lot of it is self-taught. A lot of it's trial and error. Um, I will say, as far as me being a mascot, every day I'm in costume, I learn something new, whether it's something massive or something small. But it's one more thing you learn that you can either, that you try to keep in your mind in case you want to do another scenario like this. Now, this can be for the good or for the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as getting into the circus and becoming a mascot and a clown, uh, I knew I wanted to do it at a very early age. In fact, the day I went and saw my boss for the first time at 4 years old out at a thing called Red Friday, which is something I've been a part of for the past 6, 7 years now as one of the characters. Um, I remember seeing him, and he gave us this little card that had his picture on it, and I remember we went home, and my mind was just spinning, just little 4-year-old Jordan, and we weren't um, super wealthy growing up, and there are a lot of kids. So my parents loved shopping at Sam's Club because you could get tons of food for cheap. And in Sam's Club, uh, they don't have plastic bags. They always had just boxes laying around that you would throw
Mm-hmm.
your groceries in, and then you take them out to your car. So that being said, our garage was full of boxes. And I remember I went out to my garage and grabbed one of the boxes and drew Casey Wolf's face on it and poked holes in it and ran around my front yard. And basically just didn't stop. Um, it takes dedication. It takes a lot of trying to think the best way to phrase this. It, Dedication is key. Passion is huge, and not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy to give up whenever you have a dream like this. Um, I remember there was a little thing that went on when I was with the circus. During intermission, we would have these little things that would come up with fun facts, and they said it's harder to be a clown with Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus than it is to be an NFL football player. Now, the reasoning for that is we had 3 shows. One show was the Gold Show, which traveled by truck and RV, and they went to smaller towns. Now, they only had 1 to 2 clowns. And the Red Show, which was what I was on, which Red and Blue are 2-year tour shows, meaning they crisscross. So one year you would get the Red Show in Kansas City, and then next year you get the Blue Show, and then we come up with a new show basically every 2 years. So we'd swap out
Mm-hmm.
and visit the places that we weren't at. But and we lived on a train. Each train was a mile long, over a mile long. The Red unit has their own train, and the Blue unit had their own train.
Wow.
But each of those shows only had 12 clowns on each show. So if you think about that, that's 24 clowns in the 2 on the Red Show and the Blue Show total, and then 1 to 2 clowns on the Gold Show. So that's not very a big amount of. There's not a very good chance of being able to get a part of something like that. You really have to be dedicated, and you really have to practice, and you really have to on your craft. I mean, I worked with people from Brazil. I worked with people from all over the world that wanted to be a clown with the circus, and it's it was really cool to be a part of. That's for sure.
It
Now,
was
as far
really
as like
stressful too. I remember that. I mean,
very
I,
stressful.
I just remember a little bit of it, but just all the anxiety that you had
Uh,
because of the pressure that was on you, and like when you had your audition. I mean, you can't mess up. There's no
yeah, that was the audition was one of the scariest things for me because um, honestly, I'm somewhat introverted out of costume. I, I prefer to be in a costume whenever I'm being crazy. And the audition I went to be a part of the circus was in New York City at Grand Central Station, and they said you need to have a 5 to 8 minute routine that you created, uh, ready to go. You're going to perform by yourself, and you can't be in makeup or costume. Now I'm still at this point like, well, there's probably just a back room. They're going to have a student. No, this was in the big part of Grand Central Station, so people are walking by, trying to get to work and whatnot. And here I am getting in a fight with a folding chair, and the folding chair won. And yeah, I mean, it's
And how old were you when you did that again?
I that was 2012, so I would have been 20,
Yeah,
20.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
I remember that time. It was a very interesting to watch you go through that. I also remember, um, and again, we were in a church environment, so everybody's always polite in a church environment to a degree, but there was still even in the circle we were in together, there was still the talk of like, really, this is what he's doing, really?
Uh huh.
How
Oh
how do
yeah.
you how do you deal with that aspect of it?
I love it when people say, "Oh, you can't do that," because I'm like, just watch. Seriously, it's all about the dedication. It's about the passion. Um, I, I heard someone say something that really, really, really bothered me, and it was, I hate my job. I hate my job. I go to work every day. I go and sit behind a cubicle and just typing away on a computer, and I absolutely hate my job. But it's cool because I make a lot of money, and then I spend it all on the weekend. And
Right, right.
I get a week long vacation. Now, what's so bad about that is the fact that what you are actually saying, if you're working a 9 to 5 job or something like that, um, you're working 5 days a week. And when you come home, you eat dinner, and then you're kind of like, watch a little TV, uh, go straight to bed. So the majority of your day is work, and the majority of your week is work.
Mhm.
So if you're saying you absolutely hate your job, uh, you're in a sense saying you hate your life. And it's, I mean, if you think about it, you're hating a majority of your life. And I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to go through that. So I taught myself as many things that I could learn: juggling, pratfall, slapstick comedy, um, how to interact with people, how to have a conversation, and only doing pantomime. So I just I never wanted to come to a point where I was like, I really don't like my life. I really don't like my job. And I've been very fortunate to be able to continue doing what I love.
Mhm.
And if anyone's listening to this and is struggling, not sure what they're supposed to do with their life, and or debating on giving up on your dreams, I just want to give you that encouragement and say, don't do it. Don't give up. Don't give up. You were given this dream. You were given this for a reason, and nothing's impossible. Because if I can make a living putting on a costume and sweating and stinking, I mean, you can do anything, you
And
know?
flipping over chairs and falling downstairs and the things that you do. It is great. Um, Talk about the other side of it now that you mentioned that you also do like makeup and prosthetics and things like that. And if somebody's saying makeup, you're not like, no,
Yeah, no, it's
You're
not the
part of
prettiest.
something. Are you still part of a haunt every year? Do you still participate in that?
Yeah, so for this was actually last year was my 11th year working haunted houses. It's one of my favorite things. I love getting to work haunted houses, and that's actually growing up in the church. It was something that was very controversial,
Hmm.
especially when we went to my uncle's church. He's very anti-Halloween. Um, I mean, that's fine to each their own. I don't feel convicted by it. And in fact, I've met some wonderful people through the haunted houses, and I've been able to honestly be, a light in certain people's lives that they may not have been able to have. And they've been that to me too. And it's obviously it's not me doing these things. It's completely, it's God that has been able to allow me to have these positions and make these friendships and relationships. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But that's a
I
completely
like this
different
call.
extreme than, making kids laugh and, going to you're not going to go to the children's hospital dressed
No,
up like that.
absolutely not. No,
You're not going to do that.
yeah.
So how do you go from clown and mascot to, you know, psycho killer? How do
Yeah,
you make that transition?
uh, it's I prefer to call it paid anger management. You get paid to do. I mean, when you talk about if I were to go into a mall or a grand opening doing the things I do at the haunted houses, I'd definitely be arrested. Like I wouldn't even make it through the doors. It's just the way it is. But that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to bring fear and excitement, and which always is followed by laughter. Almost always followed by
Hmm.
laughter.
Hmm.
Uh, it's it's character acting. It's getting the character. I've done a bunch of different mascot characters in Kansas City, and no two characters are the same. You have to be able to separate that.
Right.
And especially when I started working for the Chiefs, there's a character that's been here. Last year was my boss's 30th season actually working for the Chiefs. So this character's been around longer than I have. He has his vibe to him. So you have to learn to work with that and try and mimic it the best you can because you don't want someone going, well, that's not the mascot because the
Hmm.
mascot was this, and it's all about um, really getting yourself in the mindset that you aren't yourself anymore. You are this character,
Hmm.
and you're out there to entertain, and that's really the whole thing is it's entertainment and whether I'm making you laugh, whether I'm scaring you, whether you're hugging me. It's all entertainment. And
My one and only experience with a haunted house, there was no entertainment in that. I went into this thing, I think I was 13 or 14 years old, and I remember the flashing strobe lights, and this dude came out in like a Jason mask and a chainsaw, and they had the chainsaw, and I was absolutely convinced it was a real chainsaw and he was going to try and murder me, and I just fell on the floor and started crying. 14 years old. I mean, I'm a teenager. And the guy was like, no, no, look, it's rubber. It's rubber. It's okay. You got to move on. There's other people coming. I'm like,
yeah,
get me out of here. So
yeah,
I don't do that. But that's just me. But you're so right that whether you're eliciting that kind of excited emotion or the laughter and comedy thing, you are helping people feel things at a heightened level that they don't often otherwise feel.
hmm
And that's
I was always the kid that loved the magic of the circus, that loved the magic of someone performing something, feeling like you're in a different world.
Mhm.
Um, that whole fantasy type of thing, and I've always wanted to do everything I could to make uh, people of all ages kind of have that little bit of that magic feeling that you
Mhm.
had when you were a kid. Being able to laugh at something stupid um, that everyone can find funny, or something along those lines.
Mhm. Absolutely, because especially in this culture and society, we do so much to repress our emotions. We do so much. I mean, from telling boys, boys don't cry, right? Hold it in, to even just the way we have these devices all the time and our entertainment. It's like we're trying to escape, but we're not trying to feel. And with
Uh-huh.
what you do, you help people feel, whether that's in a football stadium or a hospital or a haunted house or a birthday party. You help people feel.
Yeah, I'm in the business of emotions,
And
if
that's
you will.
cool. That's cool.
It's a blast. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky to be able to do the things I do, and
Mhm.
yeah, I mean,
All right, a couple of rapid fire questions for you here now. Ready? Uh, Number one, you said that you're in character. Have you ever broken character, and if so, why?
all the time, all the time. There are a number of times, especially whenever I figure out something new. Um, I remember one day I had a cold and I was doing a mascot appearance and I actually sneezed and uh, someone like thought I was being the character and just sneezed on him. And I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. And I started going like I busted up laughing too. I'm like, I was trying to hold it in so I wouldn't break character, but it ended up being one of I do it all the time. I mean, uh, there are a number of times you just never know the reaction you're going to get.
Hmm.
Um, Another one that's really great is it's so childish too, but I feel like almost everyone gets a kick out of it is a fart noise, man. Uh, my mouth doesn't move, so when you hear coming out of and you just like look over and blame it on the dad or the kid, it's just those belly laughs. And um, I'm trying to remember the quote. It's if you're having fun, they're having fun.
Hmm.
So I laugh all the time in costume. I'm not going to lie. I love doing what I do, and any excuse I get to laugh, I'm gonna take it to my advantage too. Because if I'm having fun, more than likely you're gonna have
All right. Question number two. How do you go to the bathroom in the costume?
fun. Well, you don't.
Fair
it
enough.
it's you have to be really really careful about what you eat the night before an appearance. You have to, um, I don't drink soda before a night of jumping in costume the next morning, especially that day of. If I'm doing an appearance that evening, heck no, I'm not going to be eating any fried food, um, anything like that, because you have to be very, very careful. Like I said, the costume it's very, very hot. It can be very, very heavy, and we get 100-degree days here out in Kansas City in the summer all the time, and it takes a lot out of you. Um,
Worst injury in that vein. Worst injury that you've got.
Worst injury. Ooh, that's a good one. I've had a few, and last haunted house season, I smashed my hand in a freight elevator. That hurt. That wasn't very fun, but it's a cool story. So that one's always kind of interesting. They're like, "How the heck did you smash your hand in an elevator?" I'm like, yeah, it's random stuff. The one that hurt me the most was when I was still working for the Kansas City Mavericks. It's a hockey team. I Every time we scored, we would have this loud siren, or not a siren, but like a train horn go off.
Hmm.
And I jumped up and down because you have to go crazy. There was a one rule, they're like, hey, every time you hear the horn go off, you've got to go crazy because we just scored. So I went crazy, and somehow I tweaked my neck. And I remember I was laying down in my costume, and I was just like, oh, I can't move. What just happened to me? Like, what in the world? And I finally got up enough um, strength to crawl, and luckily we were right next to the entrance to back of house, backstage, if you will. And I got back there and threw the head off, and we had uh, EMTs out there, and that one hurt the most. that one I was out of costume for I think 6 weeks on that one.
Hmm.
So that one hurt a lot. That one was scary. That one was really scary because like I said, my mom's been a nurse all my life, and you always hear stories like neck injuries are the worst because there's just so many things that can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going through my head the whole time, and it ended up being fine. I ended up just pinching a nerve or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, and they took me to the hospital, which was across the street. And
Mm-hmm.
the funniest thing is, all the nurses wanted to come into my room because they had given me some muscle relaxers, and evidently I was hilarious. I don't remember what all I was saying, but I'm a guy that puts on a costume and acts like an idiot, so evidently I must have something funny to say.
Didn't need a costume at that time. How do you clean the costume?
How do you clean a costume? Okay, it's not an easy. It's quite a chore, I will say. Uh, Costumes are different. Some of them you can't clean. Some of them, for instance, Mr. Wolf has to have all of his hoops taken out. He has 6 hula hoops in his hips, so you have to take those out, put the costume inside out, throw it in the washer with a special type of soap. You can't dry the costume because the costume is made with synthetic fur, so it's essentially like a plastic. So if you throw that in the dryer, you have a very, very expensive mistake on your hands.
Mm.
And so you have to let those air dry. And more than anything, I use a lot of mascot cologne, which we like to call Febreze. And I use quite a bit of that, I will say. So I don't think they're going out of business anytime soon.
Out of all of the jobs that you've had, have you ever kept a prop from one of them? You don't have to say which one. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. Just yes or no.
Yeah, I have definitely. I mean, I still have my credentials from when I was with Ringling Brothers, part of Billy Circus, which I'm really happy to have. I still have my key to my train room, which is something else I'm really happy about. I brought my own costume when I joined the circus, so I still have it, and it's something that's really special to me. I have, yeah. I mean, you name it. I mean, it. My basement's basically a costume shop of every. I mean, anything you could really imagine. It's like, oh yeah, Jordan's probably got it. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Jordan, it has been so good to talk with you and catch up and just hear about this whole again, people don't think about stuff like this when you work an office job or work at a grocery store or whatever, but everything is important and everything needs its own kind of personality, and you have that kind of personality, and I mean that in a good way.
Thank you very much. I miss you so much. Yeah, I think about you all the time and all the great memories we had in children's ministry and upper room and all those things.
Yeah, it was fun. You still drumming?
To an extent, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, thanks so much for joining me and sharing about what you're passionate about. I appreciate it. And everybody watching, hope you enjoyed this. And
can I say one last thing really quick?
Please.
I want to put everyone up to a challenge. Find a way to make someone smile. If you're watching this, find a way to make someone smile. Find a joke online and send it to someone in Messenger, because we all need to laugh. We all need to smile. And it's not a hard thing to do. So go out there and make someone smile. Go out there and make someone laugh, because it's very good for us.
Absolutely. Jordan, my friend, thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.